everyone, and welcome back. I am Shannon Makes, and today we are going to have some crafty, cozy holiday fun. So if you have ever wanted to learn how to upcycle or paint furniture, there's going to be some handy tips or tricks for you. If you're in the mood for some cozy winter colors and cute corgis, then you're in luck. And if you're just here to hang out with me and spend another Friday getting creative, then welcome, settle in with a warm drink. If you're new here, I used to do a lot of these furniture upcycles and makeovers, but I haven't done any in a while. Several years, in fact, and I am thinking about getting back into it a little bit more, so I was looking for a fun way to sort of ease myself back into the process and remind myself how I used to do this thing, and then I found the perfect test subject at my local thrift store. It is this right here. It was local, it was very affordable, it is a small, compact project that should be easy to finish, and it is already raw wood, so I don't have to sand it down. And I think it is going to make a very cute winter-themed key rack and mail holder for my entryway. Now, like with any crafty project, the first step is the design phase, but I know that if I get into that now, I'm gonna lose half of you to boredom. You are here for the painting, the aesthetic brushstroke shots, the time lapses, and the final reveal. So we're gonna skip that phase for now, and we're gonna go get some paint instead. The good news for you is that you get to go and see a bit of Montreal, and the good news for Canal is it means she gets to go on a walk. Okay, so now that we are back in the warmth, let's take a really quick look at what it is that I got. So, I already had on hand a pretty decent selection of acrylic paints. This is like the slightly nicer name brand version, whereas I also have a bunch of these. These are like the classic dollar store brand, and I have used these before to paint furniture and they work just fine. In fact, I think the last time I used this was on this piece right here. So it's going to be interesting to test this brand out and see if it holds up as well as the dollar store kind. But even though I had a pretty good selection, I did not have a lot of Christmas colors specifically, so I went to the dollar store and grabbed these three. It's three different shades of green. We have Christmas green, appropriately, we have leaf green, and we have hunter green. So this should give us a nice range of greens to work with. And then when it comes to reds, I did already have actually two reds, one in each brand, but I want to paint almost all of this shelf red. Like that's gonna be the base color, and I didn't think that I had enough of this, especially because I don't remember how good the coverage on the acrylic is when you're painting on raw wood. So went to the hardware store and got this. This is like a swatch sampler, so if you want to paint an entire room a color, you can go get one of these. I think this was like $10 after tax, and normally you would use it to paint a large section of your wall and make sure you like the color, but in my case I'm going to use it as the base coat for our shelves. So with that being said, let's get out the brown paper to protect my cutting mat and start painting the base coat. Now, this is going to be a very Scandinavian-inspired design, and I will get into a little bit more of the details of the inspiration behind this project in a little bit, but if you've been on the channel, if you've joined in the last year or so, you're probably wondering, like, Shannon, what is with all of the Scandinavian inspiration. But if you've been here a bit longer, you will know that I spent 3 years living in Denmark. And I have to say, nobody does cozy winter vibes better than the Danes, and by extension, all the Nordic countries. There's nothing like 3 hours of sunshine in a day to make you find alternative ways to be cozy in the cold, dark, gray winter months. So yeah, I am just a big fan of Scandinavian design in general. I think they have some great ideas, from hygge to fika, admittedly a Swedish concept. Honestly, even this red is inspired by falu red, which is the color that I helped paint my friend's cottage in Sweden. Which, reflecting on it, actually means that I have painted houses in 3 different countries, and not a single one of them is Canada. So that is going to be a fun first when it happens. If you're new here, I am currently in the process of renovating a house in Nova Scotia. So if you haven't seen those videos, you should definitely check them out. Lots of good fun, hours and hours of entertainment and hard work. But that is why it is amusing that I have not yet done any exterior house painting yet in Canada. Okay, so first coat is on. I have not managed to get a single drop of red paint on either my work surface or on my nice sweater, which honestly is mildly shocking. My thoughts on the color are that it is not quite as dark as I was hoping for. It is looking almost slightly pinkish, which is not ideal. It's not the color I was going for, but you wouldn't know because we haven't talked about the design for this. We haven't talked about the inspiration behind it or where I want to go with it. So let's let this dry, see if the color darkens at all as it does so, and go talk about the plans specifically for this piece. So for pretty much any artistic endeavor, I like to start broad and general with big inspiration ideas, and then from there I tend to distill it down into what exactly I'm going to do on every specific project. And sometimes, if I'm really lucky, when I find a piece of furniture, I instantly know what I want to do with it. Like a fully formed idea just pops into my brain, and that is amazing, but it's also pretty rare. So more often than not, I really have to mull it over. I tend to have too many ideas, and I need to sort them out, filter out the ones that I don't like as much, narrow them down. And this key holder is definitely an example of the latter. So to help me out with the visualization process, I use a couple really handy and completely free tools, and the first one on the list is also today's sponsor, Milanote. Now, I've used them before when planning out my bedroom renovation, and I'm using them again today for this painting project. It is a fantastic tool for organizing your creative projects. So you can see here that I have already been collecting a lot of inspiration for future projects, a lot of different styles of hand-painted furniture, from stencil designs to much more free-handed ones. But since this was very specifically winter themed, I created a separate board using one of their over 100 built-in templates, and I started pulling in my main inspiration images. Now, I use their web clipper. It lets me quickly and easily just add images to the board directly. I don't have to save them to my computer or take screenshots. And then I could start organizing them by themes. So you can see some are very like wrapping paper-esque, others are very isolated motifs, some are very specifically Christmas, and others are more generally winter. And by the end, I'd created not only a neat visual way to organize all of my inspiration, but I found that it also helped me to nail down what exactly it was that I was drawn to. Now, Milanote is perfect for creatives in all mediums. It's not just whether you're, flipping furniture or renovating a bedroom, but maybe you're breaking down a video or making a sales pitch. And like I mentioned before, it is completely free with no time limit. So if you want to use them to start visualizing your creative projects, you can sign up for a free Milanote account using the link in the description. So now that I have all of my inspiration figured out, and in front of me, I'm gonna take my favorite inspiration images and really customize it to fit my project. And because I really find visualization to be super helpful for me, I decided to do a very literal mock-up of some designs. And for this, I like to use Photopea. Now, this is not sponsored at all, but I do use it all the time. It is a free open source website that's essentially a direct replica of Photoshop. So if you want to have access to some really powerful design tools, but you don't want to pay the recurring subscription for Photoshop, I highly recommend Photopea as well. I literally just pulled in and tried out a bunch of different designs using my favorite inspo images, and honestly, I'm really glad that I did, because this took several iterations before I found one that I was happy with. So I just kept playing around, shuffling around images, different looks, different ideas, until I found one that I was pretty satisfied with. And that takes us to this. This is our working final image. Obviously, it is subject to change as I get in there, but this is what I'm thinking of doing. I could go even further into like the details of what led me down the various designs, but suffice to say that this is what we have, this is what we're sticking with. So now that you know what it is hopefully going to look like at the end of this video, let's go check in and see how our red is doing now that it has hopefully dried. Unfortunately, that red did not darken at all as it dried, and a second coat of the same red didn't help at all. But fortunately, I did find a solution. You can see I did a little test swatch right here, and that is, I went in with this cadmium deep red, and I did a little coat on it, and now it is basically exactly the color I'm looking for. So effectively, the first red coat was just kind of acting as a primer, and then this is the final coat. And I can go back in and touch up all the rest of the red later off camera. What I did also do last night is I did give this section right here a coat of this unbleached titanium. So now this is ready to go as well. So I think it's gonna be time to move on to the really fun part, which is gonna be starting to get our design on here. Also, a really big thank you to Joanne Rogers for the frog tape. Now, this came from my Amazon wish list, and Joanne, when you got this for me, you probably imagined that I would be putting it to use in the house, but I'm only going to be using a very, very small bit on this project, and then it is going to be going in the house. So I hope that you're okay with my interpretation of this, and thank you so, so much for your support. Now, I have never been great at freehand drawing, certainly not reliably enough for my very type A personality to trust myself freehanding a project like this. So I pretty much always trace my designs out ahead of time. In this case, I am just using some carbon paper and a printout of the design I want to use. But I do know that I have a projector laying around here somewhere. I got it off of Facebook Marketplace years ago and never had a chance to try it out. So at some point in the future, down the road on another furniture flip, we will be trying that out. But for now, sticking with the carbon paper, and it is working really well. It's also really cheap and very accessible. So 10 out of 10 do recommend if you are like me, don't have the great drawing skills, and still want to have a really cool looking project. Another technique that I am doing sort of subconsciously, and I remember learning this lesson from before when I was doing this more often, is that as I'm tracing out all of my little elements on the carbon paper, I'm trying to stay ever so slightly within the line so that my carbon marks are slightly smaller than the elements that I'm tracing. And that's because once you remove this and you go to paint over it, you want to make sure you're painting over the lines that you've drawn on so that they become invisible. But if you draw your shapes exactly the size they're supposed to be, then inevitably the painted shapes end up slightly larger to cover the carbon lines. And on a design like this, where there's not very much negative space and all of the elements are very tiny and they're very packed together, don't really have a lot of room for my shapes to be even slightly larger. So that is what I'm doing, just tracing everything out slightly smaller. And that's also why I'm doing this, to remember these little things. First pattern is all traced out. Now it is the moment of truth. Time to peel this design up and see if everything transferred successfully. It should have, but still, every time I do this, I'm like, is it gonna work? Ooh, looking good. Honestly, it turned out fantastic. I am super pleased with the way this looks. So now, essentially, I have 2 more of these to trace out, and it's gonna take me a while. So I'm gonna put on some cheerful holiday music, and I will catch you once I am all done and ready to start painting. I had forgotten how much I absolutely love this. Painting tiny details with a tiny brush. I find it so relaxing and I love it, and I think we're going to be doing some more of this on the channel in 2025. And I am sure that there are probably some of you who are watching this and thinking that it looks horrible, does not look like a good time, it's very finicky, requires a lot of fine motor skills, and it is, and it does. And that's why I love it. I absolutely adore it. However, I need to do like short little sessions of it, because if I don't stop on time, I'm gonna start to get a little bit impatient and a little bit sloppy, and I'm gonna make mistakes that I'm gonna regret later. Just like sewing, just like so many other crafts. So I have currently finished all of the red. It looks fantastic. I'm gonna take a break, probably gonna go walk the dog, and then I'm gonna come back and do another color. Okay, this was not part of the original plan for this video, but I just got back from a walk with Canal, trying to take a break, and look what we found on the streets. Look at that. It's a good thing that I'm having so much fun painting this furniture, because I just keep finding it on the streets. It's like it's coming to me. So this is in pretty good shape. It's almost all wood, just the bottoms of the drawers are masonite, and it's also missing a back, so we just need to find something to go on the back there. But other than that, it's in really good shape. It's got some really sturdy bones, just needs a little bit of a paint job and some wax so the drawers slide better, and then Bob's your uncle. So yeah, look forward to that on the channel in 2025. All right, back to your regular scheduled programming, as they say. So one of the reasons that Scandinavia has a special place in my heart when it comes to Christmas time is that it's actually the only country I've ever spent Christmas in while not spending Christmas with my family. I know that doesn't make sense, so let me explain. Christmas time is the busiest time of year in my industry. I'm sure if you or someone you know works in theater, is a singer, a musician, a tech, it's probably the same story. I will always have work during Christmas time if I want it. So December for me is always spent on stage, performing, and always in a different country from my family, often even a different continent. But we really enjoy and cherish Christmas time in my house, so we always make a point to get together and be festive, but generally we have to celebrate either early in December before I leave, or more often in January after I get back. The precise timing isn't important. It's really just, as long as we're spending time together as a family. And so despite my nomadic lifestyle, I've always made it back home to celebrate Christmas every year. Every year except for one, 2020. Well, we all know what happened that year, and I was stuck in Copenhagen and very much couldn't get home to my family, a situation I'm sure many of you also found yourselves in. So we had to get creative, and we found a couple really fun things to do to make Christmas still feel like it was worth celebrating. So the first thing we did was that Phil and I spent a few days, several days actually, biking around Copenhagen and finding presents for my parents. Just, little knickknacks, fun things I thought they would like, licorice, Christmas ornaments, that sort of stuff. And then I wrapped them all up individually and I mailed that package off to my parents halfway around the world. But that actually wasn't the fun part or the main event, because I actually filmed the entire process of it, like biking around town, taking a tour of the city, and hunting for gifts, because my parents had previously come to visit me in Copenhagen, like well before the pandemic hit. So they were familiar with the city, they biked all around it with us, and they recognized a lot of the places that Phil and I were going to on our Christmas present hunt. So not only did I mail them this package, but I also sent them a link to a video, and I said, you cannot open the package and you can't watch the video until Christmas morning. We're gonna get on a video chat and we're gonna do it all together. So Christmas morning comes around, we hopped on Zoom, we said press play on the video in 3, 2, 1, go. And the four of us watched this video together, and it was basically me taking my parents all over Copenhagen, which, is looking very festive for December. And then as we would get to each place where I had picked out a present, they would be instructed to press pause on the video and go find that specific present, because, I had wrapped them all differently so they could tell which one was which. And then they would open that present and we would laugh about it or talk about it, and then, we'd press play again and just kept on going through the video, through the city, on to the next project, and so forth. It was basically like a virtual scavenger hunt all over Copenhagen, except that international travel was banned. And that was a really fun way for us to make Christmas feel like an event again, as opposed to, it was 2020. Everyone was feeling a little bit gloomy that year. And then the other thing that we did, because, we would be spending Christmas alone in Denmark, was we actually had one really good friend there, Taya, whose parents lived in Jutland, and she said, look, why don't you come with me to my family and spend Christmas with us? And we did, and it was so lovely. We spontaneously picked mussels on the seashore, freezing our fingers and toes off in very cold late December sea water, having the most delicious fresh mussel dish for dinner. We just had so much fun with her and her family and lots of amazing memories. And you're actually going to get to meet her on the channel later, because she is coming to visit us in the spring. So make sure you wave hi to Taya now, because you will be seeing more of her later. So yeah, that was kind of my fun story about why Denmark holds an extra special place in my heart when I think of Christmas time. But anyway, I'm gonna wrap this up here, and then we can roll to the final reveal. Well, after many hours laboring away at painting on this, I think I'm gonna call it done for now. And that means we can take a look at where we're at. This is version number 1. The reason I say done for now is because I do want to go in and add a little holly leaf motif on the top here, kind of like we saw in one of my design inspiration images, but I'm honestly really happy with where we're at. So the design, while it's not perfect, it looks pretty good. I did simplify the corners a little bit, so I might go in and also add those details a little bit later, but I did go ahead and attach the snowflakes from the dollar store. I cut them down so that when you see it from the side, it just gives it a little bit more interest and depth. And I also went and painted the edge of this backing piece of plywood in a green, again, just for a little more visual interest when you see it from the side, because the front is very pimped out and I thought the side needed a little bit of love too. So I am thrilled. I am so happy. It was very, very fun. It was very relaxing. It turned out fantastic. And if you enjoyed this artistic holiday eye candy type video, I highly recommend checking out my Christmas cookie video from last year. It's literally just me having fun decorating some wacky Christmas cookies in some very fun, bright colors, and it should be on screen right now.